Well, welcome along to Science Sketchbook's video on what is science. Well, science is the way that we can use our senses, our bodies, to find out more about the wonderful universe that God has made. Science literally means knowledge, which is why we have a big fat brain in the middle of this drawing. So if you like knowing stuff, then science is for you. Now, God made things in an ordered way. Now, this is a really important thing to understand, because as humans are the single most wonderful thing in all creation. God has given us minds which are ordered, which are perfectly suited to understand the world that we live in, where we also find order. If the universe is all ordered and we experience order all over the place and our brains love order, then we should talk about what on earth order actually is. Well, let's take a trip to the beach and collect a big pile of pebbles. And when you get home, you might arrange them into groups. You might have a red group for the reddy brown ones, and then you might have a blue group. And groups are a very important way that we see order and we create order in science. So we have a red group and a grey group, and then we might also arrange them in size. So you start with the smaller ones and then they get bigger and bigger as you go up. Same with the grey ones. And we create a sequence of pebbles. And this is something that us humans love to do. We categorize, we put things into groups. So we have group 1, reddy brown, 2, bluey grey. The other thing we do is we like to put things in a sequence. So this is a big part of science, arranging things into groups. So as an example, we have a certain group, a certain category of animals called reptiles. And there are still lots of different reptiles being described, about 100 a year. So this group has, at the moment, in terms of living reptiles, just over 10,000. So we have down here, at the very smallest end, this tiny little fella who is just 30 millimeters long. Right down to the other end of the spectrum, this guy who is a saltwater crocodile, and he measures a massive 5 meters in length. So again, we have a scale or a spectrum going from small to very large. You could do weight, you could do size, you could do length, you could do size of teeth, you could do any kind of scale you want. The basic idea is that we like ordering things. Our ordered minds love to put things in sequence, one thing after another, and in categories or in groups. Oh, I forgot to say, this little guy is the leaf chameleon, and he is super cool. So, on to the next one. Order can also be understood in terms of patterns, and we find patterns all over the shop. The way animals move around the place, patterns in the way clouds move in the sky, patterns in the way huge trees grow. If we zoomed in to our tree, we would see cells, incredible patterns in the way these are formed. If we zoomed into these cells, we'd see the DNA, the tiny building blocks of life, and we would see incredible little patterns inside of these. We'd see patterns in the mathematics of how things move, say a rocket taking off into space. There are patterns absolutely everywhere. There are patterns in chemistry, which is the study of matter, the study of the stuff that the universe is made from. There are patterns all throughout biology, through the animal kingdom and the world of plants. There are patterns and order everywhere. In physics, the study of how things move and interact with each other, the beautiful mathematics that define how everything works in the universe. There are patterns and order throughout all of these things. So hopefully we're getting our heads around what science is. All the things that we observe in the world show us that we find everywhere in the world, in the tiny, in the microscopic, in the macroscopic, the huge things, we're finding time and time and again order, which we can understand, that we both see order and we create order, that we put things into categories, into groups, we put things in order, in a sequence, and we see patterns all around us. But what's the point of knowing all of this stuff? There's got to be a reason for it. Which brings us on to this important question. Why do we bother doing science? Well, when God gave the world to us humans, He told us to look after it. And so this is an important reason why we do science. Science helps us to look after this precious world that we have. God also wants us to be kind to one another and not to fight and destroy things, but instead to help and to heal each other and to make good and useful things. And science helps us to do just this, to do good things, to make good and useful things, to help people and not use it for evil, to destroy and to create suffering. God also gave us this amazing universe to live in and to enjoy, like these two happy chappies down here, to enjoy the beauty and the power of creation. When God finished His work of making everything, He stood back, as it were, and said, "This is all very good." And it is truly amazing. Studying the universe, doing science, should make us wonder at what God has designed and built. And it should make us say to God, "Well done. What you have made has totally blown my mind. You must be so clever and powerful." And this idea of wondering at the amazing things in the universe and at the universe itself, this curiosity of looking at things and thinking about how they work, brings us to the last point in this video. This world truly gets our imaginations going. It's a really exciting place to be. And when you see amazing things that we don't yet understand, our minds try to work them out, to try and take many things that we do know and ask this question: how does it work? And we might say something like, "I think that might work in this way, but I'm not sure." And this is where we test out our ideas. Then, if our first idea turns out to be wrong, then we use what we learned in our testing to help us make a new, better idea. And then, guess what? We test it again and keep going and going and going. And this is the way that science helps us to gain knowledge. This is why we do experiments and investigations to test out our ideas about the world, our hypotheses. And we call this whole process that goes round and round the scientific method. And the reason why we can be sure that the scientific method is a good way of finding out more about the creation is that we know that we will find some sort of order in the universe, which is why this gets exclamation marks. The only reason we find order is because it was designed and built by the wonderfully ordered mind of God. Science, then, should help us to glorify God by knowing and making use of and wondering at and enjoying His wonderful world.